Today, we're embarking on a mission that it seems almost too simple at first
It
glance.
really
We're
does.
going to strip away all the complexity of, the diets, the supplements, all the elaborate biohacks, and really focus on the single most fundamental thing,
Water.
just water, the thing that's required for, well, pretty much everything. High-level function, cellular health, sustained mental performance. It all starts here.
It's the ultimate foundational topic, isn't it?
Ah.
I mean, we spend so much time and energy trying to optimize these tiny little marginal gains,
Right.
and yet we often just completely neglect the operating system itself.
Mm.
Drinking water is, it's universally understood as good,
Right.
but very few people really get the
Oh,
specifics.
why?
Exactly. The high leverage payoffs, the critical mechanisms that link proper hydration directly to immediate improvements in energy, in cognitive function. That's what we're digging into.
And that's exactly what our source material for this deep dive gets at. We're calling it The Essential Benefits of Drinking Water. And it just frames this paradox so perfectly.
The paradox being that it's simple and free.
Simple, free, and yet its importance is so often forgotten that, dehydration has become this kind of silent productivity killer.
And our mission here is to move beyond that vague, generalized advice. Drink more water. Okay, great. We want to arm you, the listener, with the detailed physiological reasons why this habit matters so much.
So it's not just a chore.
No, it becomes a calculated tool for optimization. We need to understand the physics of water inside the human machine.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a really clear blueprint ahead of us. We're going to systematically explore 5 core benefits that all stem from this one simple action.
Yep.
We're going to cover the immediate internal boost, so that's energy and focus. Then we'll move into the external stuff like skin health and temperature control.
And finally, the digestive engine and, crucially, the practical numbers. How much is actually enough?
Exactly. This structure should cover everything you need to know, from like the cell level all the way up to observable peak performance.
Let's jump straight in then and start where the benefits are probably most noticeable for anyone focused on knowledge work.
The immediate impact.
The immediate impact on performance.
Okay, so let's start with segment 1. Water as an energy source. I mean, this is the big one, the foundational tiredness fix. Our source states it so clearly. Water gives you energy. When you drink enough water, your body feels fresh and active.
It does, but this is a really deep rabbit hole because when we think of being tired, we usually associate that with energy depletion. Like you need more sugar or more ATP at the cellular level.
Right, you need fuel.
But in the case of dehydration, the feeling of fatigue is often, it's mechanical, not chemical. It's an issue of logistics, really.
A logistics issue.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about those logistics. What is actually happening inside our bodies when we feel that, that 2 p.m. slump? And why is a glass of water the immediate remedy?
Well, it all centers on your blood, specifically your blood volume and its viscosity.
Viscosity. So, like, how thick it is.
Exactly how thick it is. Your blood is roughly 90% water. So when you become even mildly dehydrated, and we're talking a loss of as little as 1 to 2% of your body weight in fluid, your total blood plasma volume decreases.
Okay.
This means the concentration of everything else, red blood cells, other components, that increases. The blood literally becomes thicker, more viscous.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, if the fluid that's moving through the whole system is thicker, the engine, the heart has to work way harder to push it around.
That's precisely it. The heart is forced to exert more effort to pump this thicker blood through your entire vascular system. And that leads to an increase in heart rate, an increase in vascular resistance.
So your body is just struggling.
It is. This additional sustained effort that's required just to maintain basic circulation, just to transport oxygen and nutrients. That is what manifests as physical and mental fatigue. Your body is struggling to manage basic transport logistics, so it tells you to slow down. It makes you feel tired.
Wow. So feeling fresh and active isn't some kind of bonus. It's just the sign that your cardiovascular system is operating at baseline efficiency without all that unnecessary friction.
It's the default state.
Our source frames this as a simple, free biohack for immediate activation. But it's more than that. It's like a fundamental diagnostic tool.
It really is. And this brings up a really important point that that causes a lot of confusion, especially for high-performing people. And that's the caffeine versus hydration interplay.
Oh, yeah. Because most people, when they feel sluggish, they reach for coffee.
Right. And coffee is mostly water, so
Mm-hmm.
isn't it helping? That's the question.
That's a great challenge. If I'm on my third cup of coffee, why do I still have that low-grade sluggish feeling if the real solution is just water?
Well, it's because caffeine is a mild diuretic. So while that cup of coffee does contribute some fluid volume, the diuretic effect that follows can, for some people, lead to a net loss of fluid, or at the very least, it offsets that initial hydration gain.
Okay, so it's a bit of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back situation.
It can be. But more importantly, caffeine is masking the symptoms. It works by blocking adenosine receptors in your brain so you don't feel tired. But it doesn't solve the underlying circulatory problem,
The thick blood.
the thick blood. It just blinds you to the strain on your system. Hydration, on the other hand, it actually solves the physical problem by optimizing blood viscosity. It allows the body to truly run smoothly. The remedy for that real sluggishness is almost always hydration first, before you stimulate the system even further.
That is a critical distinction. It empowers you, the listener, to stop overcomplicating the problem. Before you reach for some complex stimulant, start with the most basic requirement, which is free and has 0 side effects.
And being proactive about it. Preemptive hydration is the ultimate energy management strategy. It maintains the integrity of the whole operating system. If your energy dips because of this inefficiency, it fundamentally compromises everything else you're trying to achieve intellectually.
Which brings us perfectly into segment 2, hydration and the high-performance brain. And this is where it gets really interesting for anyone who's focused on, acquiring and synthesizing knowledge. Our source says it so plainly. Your brain needs water to work well.
Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly sensitive to it. The brain is about 75% water, and it reacts almost instantly to changes in fluid balance.
So we're not talking about extreme conditions like being lost in the desert.
Not at all. We're talking about mild dehydration stress. Research consistently shows that losing just 1 to 3% of your body fluid can significantly impair cognitive function.
So what does that impairment actually look like? In real terms for someone trying to learn something new or just focus on a task? Our source connects water intake directly to these key metrics. It says when you drink water, you think better, you learn better, and you feel more focused.
Okay, so let's quantify that. Thinking better often implies improved processing speed and reaction time. Studies have shown that a 2% reduction in hydration can lead to measurable declines in tasks that require vigilance and motor skills.
The kind of rapid, accurate responses you need when you're navigating a complex problem set or trying to synthesize data quickly.
Exactly. Then there's learning better. That relates to memory encoding and retrieval, which are functions largely housed in the hippocampus. When you're dehydrated, the fluid dynamics around those neural pathways are compromised. It literally makes memory formation less efficient.
And what about focus? This is huge. We often treat focus as a willpower challenge, like something we just need to force through pure discipline. How does hydration address the structural roots of our attention span?
Well, sustained attention requires constant, efficient signaling across all your neuronal synapses, and water is absolutely crucial for maintaining the electrolyte balance that facilitates all those electrical and chemical transmissions.
So it's the medium for the message.
It is. And when dehydration starts to set in, there's often an increase in negative mood states. So irritability, anxiety, and even just the perceived difficulty of a task, all of which dramatically erode your focus and your attention span.
Ah, so your brain's priority shifts.
It shifts from deep focus to essentially basic discomfort management.
That's profound. We are literally distracting ourselves with our own physical discomfort simply because we haven't had enough water. If you're sitting down for a big study session or a critical analytical dive, neglecting hydration means you are starting that task with a built-in handicap.
It's the foundational step for knowledge acquisition. If we use that high-performance machine analogy, think of the brain not just as a computer, but as like a server farm.
Okay.
It requires meticulous environmental control, it generates a ton of metabolic heat, and it relies on cerebrospinal fluid, the CSF, which is mostly water for cushioning, for nutrient supply, and for waste removal.
Waste removal, like clearing out the junk from thinking hard.
That's exactly it. Clearing out the metabolites that build up during intense cognitive effort. So water isn't just lubricating the machine, it's the cooling system preventing it from overheating, and it's the essential waste disposal unit.
So if the CSF dynamics are sluggish, it's like trying to run some incredibly demanding software on an old overheating laptop with a dusty fan.
Performance just drops off a cliff. Optimal clarity requires that constant clean flow. And what's more, when the body detects even mild dehydration, the brain actually starts to contract slightly. It pulls away from the skull.
Wow.
And while that's generally reversible, it's directly linked to the onset of tension headaches. Those headaches are often the brain's final painful signal that its fluid dynamics are compromised.
So if you're someone who frequently gets those afternoon tension headaches, the solution might not be ibuprofen.
The first-line solution should be a proactive hydration schedule.
The insight here is massive. Proactive hydration is just preemptive cognitive maintenance. It's a direct investment in sustainable high-level thinking, just ensuring the structural integrity of your ability to learn and stay attentive in a really demanding environment. So we've established these critical internal mechanics, right? We focused on energy and cognitive function. Now let's shift our lens a bit to the visible and the regulatory roles of water. We're moving to section 3, starting with segment 3, the skin deep benefit. Our source says it very simply. Water is good for your skin. It keeps your skin soft and bright.
And the skin is such a powerful indicator of your internal health. I mean, it's the body's largest organ, and its appearance, its softness, its brightness, its elasticity, it is highly dependent on adequate cellular hydration.
I really appreciate the directness here, focusing on the aesthetic appeal. If you want your skin to look clean and healthy, water helps a lot. It kind of cuts through the noise of the, $100 serum and points right back to the basic biological requirement.
And that aesthetic appeal is rooted in physiology. When we talk about softness, what we're really discussing is cellular turgor.
Turgor. Okay, what's that?
Turgor is basically the rigidity of a cell wall that results from the pressure of the fluid inside it. So when your body is sufficiently hydrated, your skin cells are plump. They're full of water.
And that makes the skin look smoother.
Exactly. Makes the skin look smooth, and it reduces the visibility of fine lines and texture.
But when dehydration hits, the body is a master prioritizer, right? So it's going to redirect water away from non-critical organs like the skin and send it to the brain and the heart.
Precisely. The skin is one of the first major reservoirs to be depleted. So those cells, they lose their turgor, they deflate slightly, and the skin begins to look dull, dry, and less resilient.
And that has long-term effects.
It does. It impacts the structure of your collagen and elastin fibers, which are the proteins that give skin its elasticity and structure. Over the long term, chronic dehydration actually contributes to the breakdown of these vital proteins. So proper hydration isn't just about immediate softness, it's about maintaining the structural foundation of your skin for future resilience.
And what about brightness? That was the other descriptor in our source.
Brightness is largely an indicator of efficient cellular turnover and circulation. Hydration is absolutely essential for good systemic circulation. It ensures that oxygen and nutrients are reaching the dermal layers.
And just as importantly, that waste is being flushed out.
Crucially, that waste products and metabolic toxins are being flushed out. When you're well hydrated, your lymphatic system and your kidneys are working efficiently to clear debris, which often results in a clearer, less congested complexion.
It's a really powerful feedback loop. You feel better internally because your energy and focus are stable, and then you get these positive external signs in the form of healthier looking skin.
And that external validation reinforces the internal habit. It directly links your physical presentation to your foundational wellness.
For anyone who's frequently in, client-facing roles or giving presentations, this is such an easy foundational way to manage your physical presence. Confidence comes partly from feeling and looking your best, and hydration delivers on both of those counts without any complex routines.
Totally.
Okay, moving on from that, let's discuss segment 4, which is, this is vital for survival and comfort. The body's natural thermostat. The core fact here is that water helps your body stay cool.
This is probably water's most ancient evolutionary role. The human body is designed to operate within a very, very narrow temperature band, right around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
And any deviation from that, too hot or too cold, is catastrophic.
Catastrophic. And water is the primary mechanism that maintains this delicate balance.
Our source reminds us of the loss mechanism here. When you are hot or sweating, your body loses water. We all know what sweating feels like, but let's dive into the physics of how that simple act of evaporation actually cools us down.
It all relies on a physics principle called the latent heat of vaporization. It sounds complicated, but it's not.
Break it down for us.
Water has an incredibly high specific heat. That means it takes a huge amount of energy, in this case thermal energy from your body, to turn 1 gram of liquid water on your skin into 1 gram of water vapor in the air.
So as the sweat evaporates.
And it evaporates, it draws that necessary heat directly out of your body. And that's what cools the surface layers of your skin and subsequently your core.
That explains why sitting in a really humid sauna, where the air is saturated and sweat doesn't evaporate, feels so much harder than being in a dry desert heat, even at similar temperatures.
Evaporation is everything.
Yeah.
But the entire system is completely dependent on having a sufficient water reserve. If those reserves are depleted, your body faces 2 huge problems.
Okay, what are they?
First, it cuts down on sweat production to conserve the fluid it has left. Second, and this is more dangerous, the body reduces blood flow to the skin, which is the main way it transfers heat from the core out to the surface.
So if the blood can't get to the surface to shed heat, your core temperature just rises, and rises rapidly. This is where we start seeing symptoms of heat stress, right?
Yes. That's sticky, miserable feeling of being overheated. That's the sensation of a failing thermoregulatory system. Drinking water directly addresses this by replenishing the fluid volume needed to maintain 2 critical functions at the same time.
Which are?
Circulating blood to the skin surface for heat transfer and generating enough sweat for effective evaporative cooling. If you are dehydrated, your performance degrades rapidly because your body is just trying to prevent catastrophic overheating.
We should really highlight the specific scenarios where proactive replacement is it's non-negotiable. Obviously, hot weather, like the source mentions, which leads to higher passive loss, but also intense activity or exercise.
Oh, absolutely. During high-intensity exercise, your muscle cells are essentially little furnaces. The rate of heat production, and thus the rate of fluid loss through sweat, can easily exceed a liter per hour.
A whole liter.
Easily. If you're training rigorously and you neglect fluid replacement for even just 60 minutes, you can put yourself into a serious hydration deficit. And that leads to muscle cramps, dizziness, major performance degradation. We're talking about avoiding heat exhaustion, which is a serious systemic failure.
So this isn't just about feeling a little more comfortable. It's about enabling the fundamental biological mechanism that keeps you functional under any kind of stress. Water is literally the engine coolant.
It is, and this necessity increases even more in other environments we don't always think about, like at high altitude. Respiration rates are higher, the humidity is lower, and that leads to this invisible but very rapid fluid loss just through breathing.
We really underestimate how much water we lose just by ventilating.
We do. If you are constantly challenging yourself in different environments, your hydration monitoring has to be responsive and, honestly, aggressive.
All right, now we are moving into the final phases of our deep dive, and we're tackling a crucial but I think often overlooked area, the digestive engine. We're looking at segment 5, water and digestive harmony. Our source confirms water helps your stomach digest food.
And digestion is this long, arduous process that requires both chemical breakdown and mechanical movement. And water is absolutely central to both.
How so?
Well, from the very beginning, water is necessary to produce saliva, which contains the enzymes that start breaking down starches. And further downstream, it is the fundamental solvent for all of your digestive juices.
The source material put this so simply. It says, water makes eating and moving easier for the body. But let's elevate that language a little bit and detail the specifics of that movement for our listener who wants that technical understanding.
Okay, so what we're referring to here is peristalsis.
Peristalsis.
It's the wave-like muscular contraction that moves food, which by the time it reaches the stomach, it's called chyme through your entire digestive tract. And this process requires two things: lubrication and bulk.
And water provides both.
It provides both. Water maintains the mucosal lining of the gastrointestinal tract, which ensures smooth transit and prevents friction. If that internal environment is dry, the muscular contractions struggle, and that leads to slower transit time and just general discomfort.
And what about on the nutrient extraction side of things?
Water is the medium through which nutrients are actually absorbed into your bloodstream. Many of the vital water-soluble vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, they all require water to be broken down into absorbable forms and then transported through the intestinal walls.
So insufficient hydration slows that whole process down.
It does. It compromises the efficiency of energy extraction from the food you eat.
This is a really powerful behind-the-scenes benefit that I think people only notice when it goes catastrophically wrong.
That's usually the case.
And that takes us to the crucial warning provided by our source, the explicit consequence of lacking water in the digestive process.
Right. So when the waste material finally reaches the large intestine, its primary job is to reabsorb water back into the body to prevent loss. If the body is already dehydrated, the colon will drastically ramp up this water reabsorption.
And what does that do to the waste?
It pulls excessive fluid from it, resulting in hard, dry fecal matter that is extremely difficult to pass.
Leading directly to the potential results detailed in our source, stomach pain or constipation.
Indeed. Constipation is often the body's loudest, most persistent feedback mechanism that's signaling long-term insufficient hydration.
Yeah.
The physical straining, the discomfort, the subsequent systemic sluggishness. Those are all clear signs that the basic structural requirements for elimination just aren't being met. The stomach pain can also stem from that compromised mucosal lining being exposed to concentrated stomach acids or friction from the slow transit.
This really simplifies problem solving, doesn't it? If you're experiencing general digestive distress, before you start eliminating complex food groups or buying some elaborate supplement regimen, you have to implement the water first rule.
Absolutely. It's the lowest cost, highest impact way to restore gut harmony and ensure regularity.
And regularity is key, not just for comfort, but for overall well-being. A compromised digestive system impacts everything: nutrient absorption, mood, perceived energy levels.
By optimizing hydration, you're giving the digestive engine the fuel and the lubrication it needs to run smoothly day in and day out.
So we've established the why. We've got energy, focus, appearance, temperature regulation, and digestion. Now we need the how. We're moving to segment 6, how much is enough? The numerical guide.
This is where we translate all this physiological necessity into an actionable, measurable goal. The source provides a very clear baseline recommendation. It states that most people need around 6 to 8 glasses of water every day.
That classic 6 to 8 glasses, which is roughly, 48 to 64 ounces, that's the absolute minimum threshold for generalized wellness and just basal metabolic functions.
It's the starting line.
Right. If you start there, you're simply covering your foundational operational needs. But for our listener who's focused on optimization and high performance, we really need to introduce context and flexibility.
The 6 to 8 glasses rule is a starting point, but it assumes a sedentary lifestyle in a moderate climate. As our source material immediately clarifies, the context is everything. It says more is necessary. Maybe more if the weather is hot or if you exercise a lot.
Okay, so let's try to quantify that more. What are the factors that should push our need way past that 64-ounce mark?
Well, the first is the environmental factor. If you're operating in a hot or humid environment, or even in a very cold, dry one where that passive respiratory loss is high, your requirements can easily jump by 25% or more.
Okay, is there a better rule of thumb than just the 8 glasses?
A good, slightly more advanced rule of thumb that a lot of nutritionists recommend is the half your body weight in ounces rule.
Yeah.
So if you weigh 180 pounds, that suggests 90 ounces of water, and that's before you even factor in exercise or heat.
That's a much more powerful, measurable alternative for the listener. Okay, now let's tackle the massive modifier. Exercise. The source just says, if you exercise a lot.
If you engage in high-intensity training, your fluid requirements just skyrocket. A good recommendation is to aim for an extra 16 to 24 ounces for every hour of vigorous activity.
Yeah.
And timing becomes critical during exercise. You want to preload, sip during, and then aggressively replenish post-activity, ideally with some electrolytes to replace the sodium, potassium, and magnesium you've lost in your sweat.
So sticking to 64 ounces if you're actively training is basically a guarantee that you'll be perpetually behind.
You will be undermining your recovery process and the energy you need for your cognitive work later in the day.
How can the listener get real-time feedback that goes beyond just feeling thirsty? Because thirst is often a sign you're already functionally dehydrated, isn't it?
It is. It's a lagging indicator. The simplest, most effective metric is, as widely cited, the color of your urine. Pale straw yellow indicates good hydration. Anything darker, approaching the color of apple juice, suggests you are behind and you need immediate fluid intake.
Okay, but for the highly detailed learner, is there something more advanced?
There is. For the person who really loves data, there's a metric called urine-specific gravity, or USG.
Oh, this is the deep dive we were looking for. Tell us about USG.
USG measures the density of your urine relative to water. It's a very precise way to gauge how concentrated your waste is, and thus how efficiently your kidneys are either retaining or excreting water.
And what's a good number?
A USG reading below 1.01 SEER is generally considered well hydrated. Readings above 1.020 indicate significant dehydration. Now, this usually requires a simple lab test or a specialized stick, but just knowing that this precise metric exists is key. It moves hydration from a subjective feeling to an objective, trackable data point.
So the listener application is clear. Use the 6 to 8 glasses as the bare minimum safety net. Adopt the half your body weight in ounces as a more proactive target. And always adjust significantly upwards based on heat and activity, using pale urine color as the goal marker.
And remember the timing. Hydration should be front-loaded. Drinking a large volume of water first thing in the morning immediately ends that overnight dehydration period, and it kickstarts your metabolic processes and your cognitive function. Proactive sips throughout the day then maintain that balance, preventing the dips we discussed earlier.
And with that, we've reached the culmination of our deep dive. We started from this deceptively simple concept of water, and we've broken down its powerful impacts across 5 distinct critical areas. securing an immediate energy boost, ensuring clearer focus for learning, maintaining visible skin health, enabling essential core temperature regulation, and finally, guaranteeing smooth digestive harmony.
It's truly remarkable, isn't it, that this single, completely accessible element underpins virtually every major systemic process in the body. It links cellular efficiency directly to high-level cognitive output.
The sheer breadth of benefits from this one habit is just,
Yeah,
it's hard to overstate.
it really is.
So, what does this all mean? It means optimization isn't always about complexity. It means the most basic biological needs are often the most powerful levers for improving your performance.
Right.
We've translated that simple statement from our source, drinking water is simple, it is free, and it makes your life better, into detailed physiological data points that confirm its validity.
That is the core takeaway.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate zero-cost, high-return investment in yourself. If you are committed to optimizing your output, your learning capacity, and just your physical comfort, proactive hydration is the foundation upon which everything else has to be built. Its simplicity is its greatest strength.
And as a direct, immediate call to action for everyone listening, if you haven't done so recently, we encourage you to immediately get a glass of water right now.
Your body will experience that immediate sense of relief and efficiency. It really is the shift from running the engine on half throttle to running on full lubricated capacity. So go on, take that sip.
Now, before we conclude, let's leave you, our dedicated learner, with a final provocative thought that builds on this essential insight. We've detailed how this simple, free, foundational element, water, holds the secret to feeling fresher, thinking clearer, and looking healthier.
And if the optimization of our most complex human systems, our brain, our cardiovascular system, our skin, is so profoundly dependent on something as accessible and foundational as hydration, well, it raises a really important question for continuous self-assessments.
And the question is this: if the water first rule applies so powerfully to our physical and mental performance, what other foundational elements of wellness are we currently neglecting because they seem too obvious or too simple?
Especially while we're obsessively chasing complex high-tech solutions.
Exactly.
We'd encourage you to analyze your own routines. Is it sleep hygiene? Is it intentional stillness and decompression? Is it the quality of the air you breathe? The lesson of this deep dive is crystal clear. The most profound power often lies in the most basic, free elements.
Never underestimate the simplicity of the fundamental truth. Keep drinking water and keep seeking the foundational truths that empower your learning journey.
Well said.
Excellent advice. Thank you for diving deep with us today. We'll see you on the next deep dive.